ruining words like banter. Now stop before you ruin crack. For putting baked beans in a fry. For it's coming home. Lads, not everything can come home. For chain pubs and the state of the pints you serve. And for not caring as much about Ireland versus England as we do. But every year we get one chance. Our horses winning big on your turf. This March, Cheltenham's coming home.
Paddy Power, proud supporters of the Irish Cheltenham Takeover. Over 18s, please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Back on 7:30 this morning. You're very welcome along to OTB Sports Radio. This is OTB AM, where we're here with you every morning from 7:30 until 9:30. Tommy's in for Owen. Where's Owen?
I've no idea where Owen is.
He's sick. He's fine though.
He's grand.
There's nothing actually. I mean, he could be dying, but
He's
as long
working
as
too
he
hard.
doesn't have the thing, he's grand.
He doesn't have the thing.
He doesn't have the thing. We know he doesn't have the thing because he went to the doctor. The doctor said you don't have the thing.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you think you got a thing, you got to check.
Apparently so. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you, Jer?
I'm good. I don't have the thing either. Do you have the thing?
No, I'm not. I've got a pretty strong immune system at the moment. I'm holding off it.
Yeah. It's all the swimming you're doing, Tommy. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to go swimming today. I'm taking precautions.
Well, I mean, I think, look, everybody needs to make their own decisions in these instances.
Jer, Mead Hill's first league game is on Friday night, and I'm not missing that.
But how are we going swimming today? Stop you from playing the game?
If I got sick before Friday, I'd have to go into self-isolation. I'd miss the game on Friday night. We're playing under lights in Mead Hill.
And are you playing somebody good?
We're playing Blackpool Gales, who'll be...
Oh, is Moisey still playing with them?
No.
He's
no,
finished
he's
up?
Not. I must text him and try and get some info.
Do you see some skullduggery down the line where teams who are on the verge of relegation suddenly have mass amounts of self-isolation that they need to do in advance of season-deciding games?
In 6 months' time.
Or whenever.
I don't know, there's
championship matches where you're about to be relegated. It's probably a bit early in the season for that, is it?
Maybe a bit too early. I don't know, Jerry. I don't think
Maybe
anyone
league
knows.
teams, you know?
None of us knows what's going to happen for the rest of the week, you know?
I know, but I'm talking about the skullduggery that would be in some clubs who would know the ins and outs of the rule books and the extra little bit that in the rule book that only they know about.
Okay.
No?
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that some teams are going to be like, listen, you just say you were in Italy now a couple of weeks ago and we can't play the game, and you came in and we were at a stag together and the whole team might have it. So, game shelved, season up, and by the time the season 3 fix will be much better.
It's not going to take much for that to happen. And it's definitely obviously within some teams, but it's not going to take much for that to happen. I know yesterday, like that.
It happened in the Champions. It happened in the Premier League last night.
That's exactly it. Like
tonight,
overnight, like Arsenal City's been called off. It's on offtheball.com. Obviously the Olympiacos owner and the Forest owner was at the game 2 weeks. I think it was 10 days ago.
It's the same person.
Yeah.
So Evangelos Marinakis owns both Nottingham Forest and Olympiacos, and had been down with the Forest players shaking hands in the dressing room at the weekend.
Yeah.
So they're all in isolation. Some of the Arsenal players are now in isolation because he came down onto the field after the game.
Arsenal have played 2 Premier League games since then.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, so like, how long is it going to take for the Premier League to be called off?
Well, when the one of the health ministers in the UK ends up getting it, you're like, okay. They haven't quite been taking this as seriously maybe as they could have or should have. Pep Guardiola's calling for matches to be cancelled instead of being played behind closed doors.
So he just wants the season to be...
Well, I think if the season finishes at this point, they'll just give Liverpool the league.
With a nice little asterisk beside it.
But I mean, the world will know. Pardon me. Ooh, what's that? Upper respiratory. Luckily, everybody who watches this show knows that I'm always like this. I think the world will know that Liverpool were the best team in the league this year. No matter what the asterisk says.
Liverpool fans will know too.
Shortened season, no records apply, blah, 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 but they were 75 points clear. Like
The league, yeah.
It's like, hang on, this season wasn't shortened. They won more points than Man United did when they won the treble.
If this Arsenal issue doesn't actually turn into a player actually getting the virus, I think they will play games behind closed doors. If a player ends up contracting the virus pretty soon...
What do you do?
What do you do, like? How can you go ahead with the league?
Well, if players get sick, right? So, in the normal run of things, why is this sickness different from other sicknesses when it comes to having games called off?
It's just that the degrees of separation. How many players does it take to get sick before you call it off? Like
Well, you test everybody, right?
Sure.
So you test everybody in the team. They come back. The players who are negative, they are allowed to play and they're expected to play. I think that
It's just if one player gets it,
right,
it affects another team, and it goes on from there.
So what Slovakia are trying to do here, and very different stories emerging about UEFA. Rumours doing the rounds that somebody suggested that there might be a delay in the Euros. They'd put them back, and I don't know, a month, a year, 2 years, who knows? Obviously, it wouldn't be 2 years. But then other people, Miguel Delaney was saying he'd talked to people in UEFA and there was no sense of this at all just yet. It's far too early for them to be talking about what's going to happen in June when they don't know
what's going to happen next.
What the
next
trends
week.
of the new cases are and whether or not it's coming under control. If you look at the number of cases in China and the number of cases in South Korea, the numbers were drastically down yesterday. Now it's a very small sample size than the previous day, which would suggest that things might be turning a little bit, or else they're just differently. They've changed their reporting. Who knows? But on the Slovakian situation, the players need to self-isolate for 14 days if they travel from Italy to Slovakia. They could go today and they will be able to play in the game, and they will not be missing any matches in Italy because all the matches have been called off. So everybody just needs to kind of start thinking their way through this problem. We can't be cancelling that game because the Slovakian players couldn't travel when actually they could travel today. And playing behind closed doors, I think, is actually going to be important. If everybody goes into lockdown the way they are in Italy, then everybody sits at home watching coronavirus stories on the internet.
And that's it.
And getting increasingly frustrated and scared. Let's put some matches on. Like, within safety, skeleton crew, everybody washing their hands and 60 or 70% proof alcohol. Put the matches on behind closed doors.
Do you know who had an opportunity to lead the way on that? Cheltenham. Cheltenham Festival had an opportunity to say, we're not going to open it up to the public. We're going to have our races behind closed doors, you say.
Yeah.
But what did they lose from that?
I see everybody
like
getting...
there's 60,000 people, like that photo that John Duggan posted yesterday, it's a remarkable photo.
Yeah.
It looks unbelievable. It's great. Welcome to the jungle, he said.
Yeah.
He's dead right.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's insane that those people are all there, mingling together.
I see everybody with the conspiracy theories about, it was the bookmakers who insisted that it go ahead. It was, I have no doubt it was the British government who were saying, we're not cancelling anything here. They're doing exactly what Trump has done. We're not cancelling anything.
But that's not cancelling it. That's actually putting it behind. Like, what are we missing with the race and being behind?
So the British government are saying it's business as usual,
okay,
right?
I understand that.
And that's what Boris Johnson had decided. He was in shaking hands with everybody who had the coronavirus. He's grand. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see in 10 days.
A cabinet member of his is not grand, and she's now tweeting that her elderly mother, who is staying with her, has developed a cough.
That's awful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wonder how much responsibility the approach that the British government have taken to this is going to be, how much responsibility they're going to have for what happens next in Britain, right? And stuff like Cheltenham absolutely is going to be an issue. But those decisions are not being made by the powers that be at Cheltenham. They all went into Whitehall to meet with the department officials, and the message was, go on about your business, lads. Premier League games, Champions League games. Liverpool are playing tonight in the Champions League. Like, how does this make sense?
I know, it's insane.
So just put it all behind closed doors. But that's not their decision, because if they do it, they're breaking ranks. Like...
Look, my thing is that Cheltenham is obviously a remarkable distraction from the coronavirus, and they could have set the tone. They could have set the example yesterday. Like, Atlanta-Valencia was behind closed doors last night. There were 7 goals. Maybe it changed the feel of the game, But like,
You could hear Valencia fans.
but like that's the problem.
Where were
They
they?
were gathering outside the stadium.
Were they?
The PSG Ultras. Philippe Auclair told us yesterday on OTB AM that the PSG Ultras are planning to do the same thing. Look, if they want to keep it amongst themselves, that's grand. I'm after getting a text here from a Jamie Gallagher. Am I listening to Ger Gilroy contract a virus live on air? Hopefully not.
No, it's just a low immune system in our house. A vomiting bug with the kids. It was like The Exorcist last night.
Any other news happening?
Yeah, loads of news happening. Tommy's producing on air. This is great. Tonight's Premier League match between Manchester City and Arsenal has been postponed because of coronavirus. Staff from Arsenal came into contact with the owner of the Greek side Olympiacos, Evangelos Marinakis, at the North London club last month. He also obviously owns Nottingham Forest and has tested positive for COVID-19. The match is going to be rearranged to a date yet to be set as a precautionary measure. So this is the first Premier League instance of difficulties that we've seen, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the response is like. Spurs barely laid a glove on RB Leipzig last night as the Premier League side bowed out of the Champions League. Jose Mourinho's side beaten 3-0 in Germany, 4-0 on aggregate. Joining Leipzig in the quarter-finals will be Atalanta. Josip Ilić scored all 4 of their goals in a 4-3 victory away to Valencia. They went through 8-4 on aggregate. Diego Simeone says there'll be few surprises from his Atletico Madrid side at Anfield tonight. They take a 1-0 first leg lead into the second leg of their Champions League last 16 tie with Liverpool. Jordan Henderson could return from a hamstring injury for the reigning European champions. We'll preview this game a little bit later on with Phil Thompson. Tonight's other game will be played in an empty Parc des Princes, where Borussia Dortmund will resume 2-1 up on hosts PSG. Both games kick off at 8. The Republic of Ireland can claim top spots in Group 1 of their Euro 2021 qualifiers this afternoon. Vera Pauw's side are away to Montenegro. Stephanie Roach and Emily Whelan have linked up with the squad ahead of the game in Budva, which has a 3 o'clock start this afternoon. And racing, with Altior ruled out, Defi Desoy will go off favourite for the Queen Mother Champion Chase, the feature on day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival. Tiger Roll, obviously the star attraction, as he looks to warm up for the Grand National in the Glenfarclas Chase. Last year's champion bumper winner Envoy Allen is the odds-on favourite for the day's open of the Grade 1 Ballymore Novices Hurdle. We'll get to John Duggan in a moment.
Tom Malone yesterday, 3 winners.
Tom Malone sounds a bit croaky in the office. I can't wait to get him on air a little bit later on and go, what's with the... Tom, your voice isn't as strong as it was yesterday.
He's blaming honeysuckle.
Is he?
Yeah, he said he was shouting his way through that race. But 3 tipsters, he's top for tipster table.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's,
There's one other... I'll have to double check who it was. I think there was somebody in the mirror had three winners as well.
Yeah, were they all like 6-1 shots basically? Which all of these.
Shishkin was 6-1. Honeysuckle was second favourite.
And came in a bit at the end, but when he tipped it, it was 10-3.
Yeah, his nap was a decent odds as well. So there you go.
Yeah, not bad. So here's what's coming up on you at Cheltenham. We're going to go over to John Duggan. Top 5 stories of the day, covering at 8 o'clock. Martin Lipton looking back on Spurs and where Jose Mourinho is at 8:10. Kieran Donaghy going to talk to us about what the GAA should do. That's a big question we'd like to ask you this morning. What should the GAA be doing when it comes to their matches this weekend? No one is doing anything until they're told to by the government for insurance reasons, and so it looks like you're not going off on a solo run. But is it time for the government to step in and say, how about we just play all these games behind closed doors and see, let's experiment with what that might look like, particularly for later on in the summer, because apparently the government briefed the opposition parties that this is a 12 to 22 week crisis. That would take us the whole way through the summer. That means we're staring down the possibility of no championship in summer. What do we do then? Come on, Tommy, and it's not a rhetorical question. Give me an answer.
Like, if we have no championship, what do we do with the football?
Yeah.
I think we just condense the calendar.
Just play Meath, Kildare, best of 3, winners take Sam.
Something like that, yeah. I don't know what we do. Behind closed doors, I don't know what it is like.
No.
It's hard to know. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Where's the place you've been most conscious of when you've been in a room? I happened to walk into Bucky's yesterday and I just felt incredibly... I don't know, I just felt like...
Unclean.
Should I be touching the pens here? Should I be... So I brought my own pen for today.
Right. Cheltenham show coming your way. The Paddy Power Cheltenham show coming your way at 9 o'clock. Time for the papers.
OTB AM.
We'll get to John Duggan in a moment to get his nap of the day. Then I'm going to start with the back page of the Daily Mail. Pull the plug. Pep leads calls for widespread ban on sports. So this is a very different approach from Pep to Jurgen Klopp, who's like, hey, I wear a baseball cap and I'm badly shaved. I've got no... Pep's like, no, I do have a view on this. So I'm saying cancel everything. So who's right?
Maybe there's a balance in between.
There might be front page of the Mail, soccer player, I've got the virus. I've got the virus.
Missed that.
So this is Linfield, I presume, is it? Yeah, 28-year-old soccer player. It doesn't say he's from Linfield, but there was a Linfield player obviously tested positive yesterday. And the Mail have Cheltenham going ahead, not the smartest move, says Declan Bonner, the Donegal manager. They also obviously have a picture of Hugo Lloris palming the ball into the back of the net. Good man, Hugo.
I have the Irish Mirror here. That was dire, Jose. It was brutal. Spurs limp out of Europe with a whimper. Klopp's dark arts warning. That's ahead of Liverpool Atletico tonight. Will Liverpool be able to handle Simeone's team? And Euro playoff is quinned out. Niall Quinn admitted Ireland's playoff semi-final with Slovakia could yet be called off due to the spread of the coronavirus. And then there's obviously a Cheltenham pull-out inside as well.
The Racing Post this morning, the champion and the wonder horse. And they have Defi de Soy versus Chacun Pour Soi in the champion chase. Two French-named horses. I don't remember the last time you had two up against each other. And Grand National and Festival legend Tiger Roll in the cross country. So that's that. And then obviously they are also previewing the Champions League action, home improvement. So they think that Reds to make most of Anfield advantage. Certainly they're going to win tonight. Are they going to win tonight? Are they going to go through? Well, Phil Thompson's going to tell us they are a little bit later on, but we'll ask him how and why.
The Sun are keeping us all calm by leading with chaos. UEFA no requests to move tournament to next year. Fixtures postponed and crowds banned, and one Linfield player. That's a positive. That's where you read that earlier. JP, birthday to you. Happy birthday to JP McManus yesterday. Obviously had a massive win with Epitante. And Jose Leipzig after last night.
The Irish Independent. Virus takes grip of sporting world. UEFA may postpone Euros by a year. Aidan Fitzmaurice's story. John O'Mahony says behind closed doors is a possibility. He said not this weekend, but the weekend after. I kind of wonder, like, why not just do it this weekend? What's to stop everybody from doing it this weekend and going, let's see what happens but behind closed doors when it's not massively important matches. It won't be huge crowds being discommoded. It's not like a complete disaster. If you were going to the game on Sunday, it's now Wednesday. Game's not actually going to happen on Sunday that I'm allowed to go to. Let's all see what this is a little bit like.
Stream them live on YouTube for everyone who's at home.
Well, probably most of them on TV anyway, but yeah, like, good chance for them to, let's just roll out our GAA channel and see exactly what happens. And then Munster face 6 weeks without a game in rugby at the moment, so all sorts of logistical difficulties for people involved in rugby going, we have no matches, we've got all these players that we're paying, we've no income from gate receipts. This is going to be a few sticky months for a lot of businesses.
The Guardian, no way, Jose. Tame Tottenham tumble out of Champions League. Coronavirus threatens football season and Olympics. And then Rachel Blackmore. Sweet success for Blackmore as Honeysuckle Seals Mayor's Hurdle victory. We're going to be getting into that and today's racing a lot more on the Cheltenham Show and with John in a couple of minutes' time. I've also got the Times here, Ger. Tottenham brought to their knees. A photo of Dele Alli last night. I think that's after he missed one of his chances, or it could be at the end of the game. Fans shut out a United tie. Manchester United are playing the Europa League game in Austria, again behind closed doors. Klopp fearing Atletico tricks. Jurgen Klopp getting the excuses in early, is he?
Who?
Liverpool are not going to be sidetracked by Atletico Madrid's gamesmanship.
Well, we'll see. Front page of the Examiner, golden moment, Garrity and Epitante seal 60th Cheltenham victory for JP McManus. And Kieran Shannon, dare we say it, could the entire 2020 GAA Championship be wiped? He's gone back through the history books and has some good examples of what might have happened in the past at moments of national crisis.
The Irish Daily Star, Slovaks, Quinn admits playoff at risk of chop.
Top of the morning to you.
Yeah, it's one of them. Tottenham flop Spurs. Rachel and sweet success. That's that same line again after Rachel Blackmore's fantastic win yesterday on Honeysuckle. And Wolves peeved. Wolves do not want to travel to Greece after the Greek club's owner, the Olympiacos owner, Marianakis, caught the virus. That's obviously connected to the Arsenal story too.
And the Irish Times for you. Coronavirus continues to close doors on the game across Europe, and they also have reports from last night in the preview of tonight's game as well. Gordon Darcy's column in the paper today. Forest owner, I've caught coronavirus. Of course, he's the Olympiacos owner as well, which is why the Arsenal City game is gone tonight. And yeah.
The stories off theball.com as well. I know we led with the Arsenal one this morning. There's a few other ones as well. I think of the Telegraph.
Arsenal players in self-isolation as Man City game postponed. So they must have established that some of the Arsenal players did come into direct contact with the Olympiacos owner. And more upheaval in Mayo football over mass resignation on ladies' board. This is a story that broke yesterday. 10 of the LGFA board in Mayo are gone. Linfield player diagnosed with coronavirus is the latest there. And we also have all our Cheltenham preview coming for you. And Graham Souness, not mincing his words last night, people are going to die. Souness on behind closed door matches saying people should be playing these games behind closed doors.
That Mayo article is worth keeping an eye on again. Obviously, the coronavirus is not going to stop the circus over there either.
Right, let's move on. We've got John Duggan with us this morning. John, good morning to you from
The
Cheltenham.
Cheltenham Show on Off the Ball. And they're off. Brought to you by Paddy Power. Cheltenham's coming home.
Well, John, how are you?
Not too bad, Jerry, yourself?
Yeah, it's like there's certainly been a debate about the merits of continuing with Cheltenham. On the ground, are people talking about the fact that everybody is there?
No, on the ground, I don't get a sense that this is something that's been debated at length. Although the crowds were down yesterday, Jerry, there were a lot of no-shows, 9% down from 67,000 to 60,000. It's more on social media that I'm seeing, especially more from Ireland, that I'm seeing a little bit of disquiet, or in other areas of Twitter, extreme displeasure at me being at Cheltenham, or taking snaps of crowds, or people being in crowds and not at a safe distance from each other in the minds of people that believe that should be the case. So the government advice here from Monday was that it would be perfectly safe for sporting events to proceed. That is the UK government advice from Oliver Dowden, the Culture Secretary. And Cheltenham are effectively going off that. And I don't see how they can not go off that, if you know what I mean. If you compare it to the IRFU situation back when the Italy game was in doubt, they have to be guided by the government, and I think that's what is the case here. The second question really is it wise that this is actually happening? I think we're at the stage now where the horse has bolted, if you excuse the vernacular, and this will continue into Friday with crowds, and I think it'll be only after the event that there'll be a kind of a dissection or a digesting how wise it was to hold it.
I think that's the key point here, John, is that the Cheltenham organisers, if they were to unilaterally decide that they were going to do this behind closed doors, their insurance company would say, you're making that decision, you've done that of your own volition, that's not the advice from the government. The government are continuing to allow and in fact instruct the gathering of major crowds. We're not paying you out, and all of a sudden, who knows, the racecourse could go bust or something very serious. The repercussions would be huge. What they needed was the government to say, actually, you know what, maybe we don't need 67,000 people there and 45,000 people at Anfield and 80,000 people at the rugby last weekend and wherever the rugby is this weekend. Let's just stop having these mass gatherings for a while and see if that has any impact on stemming the figures that they're seeing in the UK. Bear in mind, the UK not testing at the same level as any of the other countries who have discovered the massive spikes in people coming down with the virus. So the racecourse and the organisers are trapped by the inaction of the British government here.
I think you're spot on, Ger. And if you ask the racecourse here, is it an insurance issue? They're not going to tell you that. But the health minister in the UK, Nadine Dorries, has caught the coronavirus. So the advice from the government 2 days ago, and it hasn't changed, and it's not changing for the Liverpool match tonight, I believe that's still going ahead, is that it's perfectly safe for these sporting gatherings to happen, and it'd be very premature for them to get into a stage where it would be behind closed doors. Now, that premature might be a lot quicker than we expect in the UK and in Ireland, but at the moment, that's why Cheltenham are caught between a rock and a hard place, in my view, and I think in your view, that they can't just say, we're not going to hold this because of the repercussions they would have, and also it doesn't seem to be the case that because it's going ahead, I don't see any kind of safeguard for hold it behind closed doors from a bailout or financial point of view. Therefore, it's going ahead, and it's going to go ahead until Friday with crowds.
Yeah, OK. John, the racing will continue today. It was brilliant racing yesterday, and look, Philippe Auclair had a brilliant line about Jorge Valdano yesterday. Of all the things that don't matter, this is the most important. Valdano was talking about football for racing fans. Cheltenham is hugely important, and it is a distraction from the relentless grind of the news cycle at the moment, which is story upon story upon story upon story, and everybody is a little bit freaked out by the fact that this is the continuing story. So we're going to park the corona talk for now. We'll obviously come back to it a little bit later on with respect to the GAA and a bit about football, but let's talk about the actual racing itself. I mean, I thought the racing was fairly sensational yesterday. You had some brilliant finishes. You had heavy favourites overturned. I don't know about the overall all-time quality of the actual races that we were watching, but if a finish is close going down to the line, most punters don't care about the place in history of the actual protagonists.
Yeah, and there are stories. What we want is stories, and there was 2 great stories from an Irish perspective. There was 3 winners: Ravenhill, Put the Kettle On, and Honeysuckle. The Honeysuckle race was a great story. You had Rachel Blackmore and Paul Townend know each other very well. In a brilliant finish. A little bit of disquiet from the Willie Mullins stable about the ride that Stormy Ireland got. Didn't maybe go at a fast enough pace. And then Honeysuckle was allowed in on the inside. Benny Juju went wide. And then you have a brilliant battle up the hill between 2 mares, Honeysuckle and Benny Juju, hammer and tongs. And Honeysuckle comes out in front, as Tom Malone correctly predicted on the show yesterday. And Honeysuckle never been beaten. And also the right decision for her to go for the mare's hurdle rather than the champion hurdle. So great decision by Henry de Bromhead, who's having a great season. He had 2 winners yesterday. And another great story that the Dermody family from Kilkenny, they bought the horse, Put the Kettle On for 20 grand. It's another mare. And just to see a community and a family from Ballyhale going to Cheltenham and having a winner for the second time. They had a winner of the course, the same horse back in the autumn. She was put away and then she jumped brilliantly and stayed on really well to win. And then the champion hurdle is JB McManus has put a lot of money into the game over many decades. He's 69 yesterday. That's the 4th year in a row he's won the champion hurdle. Barry Geraghty, he's 40 years of age now. He's a wise man in the weigh room, and it was a great win for him. So I always think there are great stories. Even the first race was a brilliant race, Shishkin and Abacadabras. And those 2 horses will be stars of the future. The ground was tough here yesterday. It was soft ground, really heavy ground at times. It was hard to get through. But there's always things that conjure the imagination and get it going. And I think Honeysuckle was the key thing.
We were talking yesterday about Rachel Blackmore. A lot of money had come in for her to be champion jockey over the course of the week. Paul Townend obviously has the book of his choice of Willie Mullins rides, but was Barry Geraghty a bet that was sitting there that none of us were looking at going, well, you know, I mean, he has done this before, and actually he's got a lot of short price horses, and his book of rides is fairly sensational. Is there a chance that this is just another massive week where the stage is clear, Ruby's gone, his old adversaries are kind of retiring, and he's like, yeah, of course I'm going to be champion jockey this week?
I think it's based on the trainer, and Nicky Henderson did have a good day yesterday, and Shishkin was a very good sign that he's going to have a good week. Willie didn't have a great day. Willie Mullins yesterday, carefully selected, fell in the amateur chase. And this is a really interesting day for Willie and Paul Townend and for Patrick Mullins, because they have Chacun Pour Soi in the champion chase. They have Appreciated with Patrick on board in the bumper. Willie's got a load of horses in that handicap hurdle, the Coral Cup. I do think still that Willie's got the favourite for the Gold Cup. I still think that Willie is the favourite to become the champion trainer, but it is more open than it. And it's a tricky thing to get involved in. Best jockey, best trainer.
Well, we should probably let you go and just check and see if that's an actual...
That's just a test.
Okay,
Everything
grand.
was just a test.
Okay.
We're okay.
Okay. I mean, I just thought that you were like, you know, I'm in Britain, I've got to stiff upper lip this out. The flames, you're like the little dog sitting at the table going, this is grand, as the flames lick around you. It's okay.
Yeah.
No?
Well, you should have seen me on social media last night. That photo I took of the Welcome to the Jungle photo.
Yeah.
Which I take this every single year at Cheltenham. For about the last 10 years, about the 10 minutes before the Supreme Novices Hurdle, I take the Welcome to the Jungle, because it's the betting jungle photo of the whole concourse and the whole crowd stretching for forever. And the reaction was of extreme displeasure that the crowds would be so close here at Cheltenham, and that Irish people would be there, and that they would be coming back home. But obviously we decided to park that, given, you know, we had a sensible discussion at the outset of the chat about that.
Yeah. Were you taken aback by the reaction? Did you expect it?
I didn't expect it, to be honest. Because I suppose when you're focused on something like Cheltenham, you're focused on getting in the zone of the stories and getting in the zone of being at a big sporting event. So it's not that I was immune to what's going on around me. Obviously, it's a major global story and a very, very serious story, and we're not trying to underplay the seriousness of it. But it's now become that everything where there's a mass gathering has a reaction to it. Like Irish, I'm sure there are Irish fans going to Liverpool tonight. Like the Premier League game is off, Arsenal against Manchester City. So now it's a completely different reaction to what I would have received in any other year. It normally would have been, oh, that's brilliant. Look at that. That's a great thing. Now it's, why are you there?
Well, I mean, you're there for work. Like, that's the...
and it's quarantine yourself in the Irish Sea. With some of the kind of stuff you're seeing. So that's what we're seeing at the moment. But you just have to obviously block all that out and say, what we're here to do. We're here to, first of all, report on it. And because things could happen here, things could develop here. That's what we're here to do, to report on the news, but also to report on the stories that life goes on, and it's going on at the moment. And we had some good day yesterday, good winners.
Yeah, give us your nap of the day today, John.
Minella Indo in the Sunderland's chase that's at 250 with Rachel Blackmore riding for Henry de Bromhead. We're going to go with a winning jockey and trainer combination here. This is a horse. I watched the whole festival about a month ago back, and there was 2 horses I picked out of it. Minella Indo and a Plutard, both for Rachel Blackmore, both for Henry de Bromhead. Minella Indo won at 50-1 in the Albert Bartlett race over the course and distance last year. Henry de Bromhead is a brilliant trainer of jumpers. And the horse, I think, has got a touch of class. And I think we know that what really impressed me about Minella Indo last year, he was very keen in the race, and that he was quite exuberant and he didn't really settle. But then he was in the front line. But he kept on going and going and going and going, and then he stayed on it really, really strongly up the hill. If Rachel can keep him wide and she does instill her horses with great confidence, I think Minella Indo is a class horse and could be a Gold Cup horse in the future. At 100-30, just over 3-1, he's the nap of the day for me. But it would have to be better, Ger, because yesterday was an absolute disaster. Tom Malone had 3 winners. He just took everybody to the cleaners. He'd Honeysuckle, he'd the Conditional, he'd Shishkin, and I was left completely without any shirts. It's all T-shirts now underneath the jumper, Ger, for the rest of the week. Tottenham lost as well, so maybe I shouldn't come home.
Well, look, it's a hair shirt, according to some of the people who follow you on Twitter. John, good stuff. We'll be back to you a little bit later on. Thanks very much. That's our man in Cheltenham, John Duggan, who is obviously there in association with our Cheltenham partners this week, Paddy Power. We're going to bring you the full Paddy Power Cheltenham show from 9 o'clock this morning. To mark your cards, we'll have Tom Malone back in to bask in the reflected glory of what happened yesterday. As John said, he tipped 3 winners for us there. We'll also have Paddy Power himself, and we'll speak with Johnny Ward between 9 and 9:30, and we'll go through the card with John Duggan as well. So if you need your Cheltenham card marked, then come back to us at 9 o'clock this morning. Here will be a different stream from this one as well. A reminder, of course, that our Cheltenham coverage is brought to you all week by Paddy Power. Cheltenham's coming home. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with top 5 stories after this.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Every morning this week from 9 a.m, John Duggan will be live from the biggest festival on the racing calendar, Cheltenham. He'll be bringing you his top tips of the day, as well as exclusive interviews with all the top jockeys, trainers and pundits. Ger Gilroy, Tom Malone, Johnny Ward and Paddy Power himself will all share their racing insights and tips across the festival week. That's the Cheltenham Show, every morning at 9 a.m, with thanks to Paddy Power, Cheltenham's coming home. OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
She's just such a special mare. You know, for her to be produced like that every day she runs is unbelievable. She's so tough, and she's such a credit to everyone who looks after her. Coleman Comfort, Emma Rather look after her at home, and they do a fantastic job with her. And as I said, Henry has her, you know, produced in tip-top shape every day she goes racing, and I'm just such a pleasure to be involved with her. You know, she had plenty in the tank, which is what you want coming up that hill, and oh look, it's just fantastic to be involved with something like her. Is unbelievable, yeah, she's just a credit to everyone involved with her. It's brilliant, and it's just you know, to be in the position I'm in, to have the rides I have, is every jockey's dream, and yeah, I'm going to try and make the most of it.
Rachel Blackmore yesterday, a lot of pressure on Rachel Blackmore heading into the festival, a lot of money for her in advance of it, and obviously getting that victory yesterday got her off the mark, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Going to bring you the tipster table. This is something that normally Owen Sheehan does, but unfortunately he's off sick at the moment. He's grand, don't worry, and Tommy's going to do it today instead. The Arsenal game tonight has fallen by the wayside because the owner of Olympiacos was down shaking hands with them, and it turns out he's got the coronavirus, so their game against Manchester City is cancelled. Spurs, we're going to talk with Martin Lipton in a couple of minutes about their abject performance over 2 legs against RB Leipzig. They're out of the Champions League, and it means that the season is going off the rails pretty quickly for Jose Mourinho. Liverpool in action tonight against an Atletico Madrid side who were absolutely brilliant in the first leg in terms of getting under the skin of that Anfield or that Liverpool team at Anfield. Whether or not they're going to be as successful, that we'll see tonight. Jurgen Klopp has called for home advantage to be important, and obviously the fans are going to be there, so full home advantage, and maybe the last time that any team has home advantage in any game of football for a long time to come. And what is the GAA's plan with regards to, I mean, obviously they're scenario planning for worst case scenarios. What would those scenarios look like? Good piece today from Kieran Shannon in the Examiner, which we'll talk about in just a little while as well. Phil Egan's going to join us in studio to talk Spurs and Liverpool in a moment. Then we're going to hear from Martin Lipton. Then we're going to hear from Phil Thompson. First, though, the tipsters table. Tommy is here.
Hello, Ger.
How's it going?
All good. Good work from Jake O'Donnell this morning. He's up since about 5:45 doing this morning. He's just finished, just printed it out.
Great.
We have our results from day one of Cheltenham and top of the tipster table. Going to give you the top line here. You can go to offtheball.com and get all the tips later on. I'm going to give you top line across the day today. But top of the table yesterday after day one, Tom Malone. Woo! 3 winners, off the ball tipster. Going to be on the Cheltenham show with us after 9 o'clock. Also Jason Heavey of the Irish Star and Darren Norris of the Irish Examiner. Now, the 3 lads, none of them had the same tips. Tom obviously had honeysuckle, shishkin and the conditional. 2 winners, we'll just give the shout out for 2 winners as well. Tom Pepper in the Irish Sun had 2 winners. Sirius in the Irish Sun. Newsboy in the Irish Mirror. Rob Wright of the Times. Brian O'Connor of the Irish Times. Peter Scudamore in the Mail. Jane Mangan in the Irish Daily Mail. And Marcus Armitage of the Telegraph. And then there's Chris Cook, Peter Hare, Robbie Power. There's a number of people who have 1 winners there. Patrick
Winners
Mullen.
that get out of jail but not actually break even.
Yeah, Patrick Mullins had
You need 2 to
good each
be
way.
up, and 3 is like, I had a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
I had more money in my account at the end of the day than I did at the start of it.
Yeah, well, sometimes you only need 1 winner. and
I
just not
only
be
had
back
2
in every
actually.
night.
And I was late to the Tom train, but I got on board after the first one. I'm like, oh, balls.
I popped into Tom's corner into the studio at 1:25. I was like, come on back in for the first, and he gave me shishkin, so I followed him after that. So I did all right. Right, today, the Ballybor Novices Hurdle at 1:30. Envoy Allen, no surprise, is being tipped by Tom Malone and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's about 15 other tips there for Envoy Allen. Sporting John has got a tip at 4-1 from Charlie Brooks. And then there's Longhouse Poet, The Big Breakaway, Mossy Fenn, and The Big Getaway with Patrick Mullins.
Bear in mind,
each getting 1 shout.
Okay, bear in mind, Envoy Allen is 6-4 on. So
Yes.
it's a 50 odds, 3 places. The Big Breakaway is 9-1. Sorry, The Big Getaway, is that what you said?
No, Patrick Mullins has the Big Getaway, sorry, yeah.
Okay, so there is a horse called The Big Breakaway and The Big Getaway.
And they've both actually just moved out there.
And they're 11 and 12 numbers today, so you want to make sure you get those right. And they have both drifting in price. The Big Getaway is the one he's tipping.
Patrick Mullins is tipping that one, yeah. Patrick Mullins is tipping that.
Big drift, 7-1 all the way out to 12-1. So somebody somewhere doesn't think that's going well, but Patrick Mullins has tipped it up in the paper. It is a Mullins horse, so that's interesting.
At 2:10, John Duggan's nap was Manila Indo. I know we have John's tips coming up a little later on offtheball.com. Also tipped by Tom Malone, by Marcus Armitage, Tony O'Hare, Peter Scudamore, Sam Turner, Newsboy, and Tommy Lyons. Then there's that's Manila Indo at 10-3, and then Alaho at 4-1 is being tipped by 5 or 6 tipsters. Copperhead has got 2 tips from Charlie Brooks and Wayne Bailey in the Indo. That's 5-1. And then Champ, which is 7-2, has been tipped by 2 people. I think that was highly fancied a couple of weeks ago, but people have kind of gone a little cold on it now. And Michael Verney has an each way in this one. Slate House, which is right now 11-1. That's Robbie Power on board a Colin Tizard horse.
Okay, so 250.
250. Jane Mangan is tipping Birchdale. Dam de Campagne has got 6 shouts from Wayne Bailey, Paul Keeley.
This is a big race, bear in mind. Bookies are playing 7 places. Paddy Power playing 7 places on this one. So, this is definitely one of those ones that people are going to stick a pin in, and they have a good chance of having something run on into a place. So,
I'll tell you who I'm looking at here. It's because Tom Malone has gone for it in each way, and Michael Verney is looking at it too. Tom Segal is looking at it from the Racing Post. Those days are gone. 14-1. So that could be a good each way in when there's 7 paces paying out. Let's go to the 3:30. There's Deputy Sai. 11-10 is being tipped by is getting more shouts than Chacon Poursois.
That's a 2-horse race according to the bookmakers.
And that's all that's been tipped in that race at 3:30. 4:10, Tiger Roll has been tipped by plenty. And then Might Bite has a shout. Charlie Brooks has gone for Josie's orders at 33-1. And then there's 5. Marcus Armitage has picked out Easyland as his nap in this race with Tiger Roll at 4:10.
Somebody's picked Easyland as a nap?
Yeah. 4-1. And then just quickly before we finish, 4:50, Galahad Quest. Tom Malone has this one at 25-1.
Woo!
And then the man we just mentioned there, Marcus Armitage, has Galahad Quest at 25-1 as well.
Right.
Michael Verney and
Santos
Darren
and
Norris and Tom Segal have gone for Tronador in the 4:50, which is right now
And the
7-1.
bumper, Patrick in the bumper.
Appreciate it.
There you go.
This
That's
is the
Patrick in the bumper. 15-8, 9-1 bar in the bumper. Jesus, that's a lot of people need a saver in the last race of the afternoon. Tommy, good stuff. That's going to be up on offtheball.com. The poll of polls, we like to call it. It's the wisdom of the crowd. You know, this is the type of stuff that Aaron Schatz would do that you'd see. And ESPN would buy it for $100 million. We're giving the stuff away for nothing. You can actually get it on WhatsApp as well.
Yeah, you can. You can.
087
9-180 180.
190. Virgin Media Sport have over 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games available live this season. All these games are available to all Virgin Media TV customers who can also download the TV Anywhere app and stream the action whenever and wherever they like. Here's the Virgin Media Sport panel of Souness, Kerr and Kilban reacting to Timo Werner's recent form amid rumours that English clubs, particularly Liverpool, are preparing summer moves for the German.
I think he's a really good player. I think he's tailor-made for our football. Looks to be a really good type, hard-working, doesn't show disappointment when he doesn't get the ball when he thinks he should. Forever on the go, will play on the shoulder, will come towards it, and he's got an eye for a goal.
Does he challenge that Liverpool front three? Do you think if they go from is he a boost the squad player?
What I think about him is that he can play across the line. Tonight he plays off the left, not in the wide position. But we've also seen him playing the out and out centre forward position, and he's played in that position for Germany. He can play to the right side, so he's adaptable. I mean, for him to go to Liverpool or one of the top teams now, the demand will be you have to be involved in the pressing side of the game. As much and what we have seen, that's the style of this manager of Nagelsmann. You expect to do that, so I think he'll be fit.
Is this his third year of 20 goals?
Yeah, he's 25 this year.
Yeah, ready made.
Yeah, good stuff from the Virgin Media Sport panel. That was Souness, Kerr and Kilban talking about Timo Werner. A reminder, Virgin Media Sport have over 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games available live this season. Phil Egan is here with us. Phil, going to talk football, going to talk about the Liverpool game, going to talk about the Spurs game, but we want to talk first about the impact that the coronavirus has had in the Premier League. First cancellation of a game. Nothing to do with a government edict. This is to do with players in self-isolation. What's going on?
So Arsenal played Olympiacos in the Europa League. The second leg was on the 27th of February. So Evangelos Marinakis is the owner of Olympiacos, also the owner of Nottingham Forest. And yesterday he released a statement on Instagram to say that he has tested positive for COVID-19. And he is actually seen after the Olympiacos win, because it was a big win for them. So he's on the pitch at the Emirates after celebrating, applauding the away fans. And what Arsenal have done is they've identified players that might have shook hands with him, might have been in close contact with him, and they've told them to self-isolate. There's a few Arsenal staff members as well who would have sat very close to him, maybe up in the director's box. Maybe you could be looking at video analysts. Or
when was the game?
This was the 27th of February.
Okay.
So he's obviously in charge of Olympiacos. Wolves, the knock-on effect is Wolves are playing Olympiacos tomorrow in Athens, behind closed doors. They've asked for the game to be postponed. UEFA have rejected that. Wolves are pretty much saying this is an unnecessary risk, so why is it going ahead? But it goes ahead as things stand. Arsenal are back in action against Brighton at the weekend, and Brighton are pretty much saying at the moment it's all systems go. Then you think of who have Arsenal played since that game.
Who have Arsenal played?
Portsmouth and West Ham.
Okay.
So there's a serious knock-on effect, and obviously Forest played Millwall last Friday, and that he was at that game as well, and he shook hands with all the Forest players.
I've already asked this. The 27th of, was it the 27th of February?
Yeah.
Okay, so the period...
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so which is actually a good thing that it's 2 weeks, because you can test all the Arsenal players, and the 14 days will have run out. So they either have it or they don't as a result of contact. It seems like this is at the outer edge of being cautious, which is the right thing to do, obviously, in this instance.
Yeah, because like as much as I love football and I love sport, you know, there's other things that are more important, and health being the what we've got to worry about here. And up until yesterday, the Premier League was the only major European league that hadn't cancelled any games. And, you know, we still have fixtures going ahead at the weekend. Even tonight, Liverpool are playing at Anfield in front of their home fans.
Yeah.
So it's now becoming a stage, we've got to a stage now where it's almost more rare that the fans are there.
Yeah, across Europe it certainly is. Like England is out of step. Ireland obviously still a good bit behind where everybody else has come to at this point. In Italy they've cancelled all the games, and you do wonder about
April,
whether or not keeping the football going behind closed doors might be a welcome distraction from everybody sitting at home constantly reading the news agenda, especially in Italy where it's like another 100 people died last night and another 1,000 cases were discovered. So you there's a balance to be struck between...
They have talked about that with the Premier League, that if it got to the case like that in the Premier League where they were behind closed doors, we don't have this problem in Ireland on Saturday at 3 o'clock because we get to see the 3 o'clock games, but the Premier League have talked about maybe taking that out of
the blackout, they call
it. In England. So
the reason for the blackout is actually specifically so that people will go to lower league football and they don't feel like they're missing games on TV.
Exactly. So the way, like you said, people get joy from football so they can watch the games at home.
Yeah, and look, if everybody decides that's not the right thing to do, fair enough. But I think it's definitely worth the conversation that actually having stuff on for people to sit and do. Everybody's going to be sitting at home watching Netflix or whatever they'll
run out of things to watch.
And they'll, talk to each other for a week. Week 2 is going to be a little bit,
yeah, exactly.
What are we doing now?
The knock-on effect as well is with all these domestic leagues, if they're postponed for a while, when do they get finished? What about the Euros? Of all the years as well, the first time we've had a multiple city Euro championships. We obviously had co-hosts, but this is meant to be all around Europe. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And a lot of people are suggesting why not just move it till next summer? But then UEFA are in that position where they'd have the women's European Championships and the men's European Championships, and trying to get the two of them to be played during the same summer.
The Olympiacos announcement has just come through in the last 20 minutes or so. Olympiacos FC informs that after the required medical exams to which all the members of the football staff as well as board members and staff were submitted, all the tests came out negative for the COVID-19 virus. That's trying to allay the fears of Wolves. Now, obviously, if the owner of the club was in contact with any of them within the last 14 days, then they're their first tests, but you can't say that everybody's clear because... but certainly from Arsenal's perspective, we're getting to the outer end of the contamination period, so that they might actually be grand in this situation.
Yeah, and as I said, they're due to play Brighton this weekend, and there's been nothing on that game being postponed.
Yeah,
so
by that stage, the 14 days will be up and actually be good to go again. But hopefully behind closed doors. That's probably the one thing that the British government has still been like, nah.
Yeah, that's what we're
Boris Johnson shaking hands with the corona.
Yeah, and the knock-on effect as well with, I know, like it seems trivial, but the game not going ahead tonight means Liverpool can't win the Premier League at Goodison. Definitely not.
Yeah, okay.
But you wonder if it got to the stage where they don't know if they can finish the Premier League season.
They would just do that bit.
But if Liverpool had already wrapped up the league, that bit is easy. You say, well, Liverpool are the champions.
But relegation,
Champions League places.
Fill out. We'll have a playoff, lads.
Yeah,
have a 14 playoff.
Yeah, it's just, it really is take day by day because it's just continues to develop.
Hour by hour on offtheball.com, I believe, is what we're looking for. So Liverpool tonight, Jurgen Klopp is calling for... Look, this might be the last game that we see played in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
There's a good chance it's certainly the last European game we're going to see played in front of a crowd. And the Liverpool crowd need to do everything they possibly can tonight because I think Liverpool are up against it.
They are, because Alisson is a huge, huge loss. And Adrian's an okay keeper, but every time the ball goes into the box tonight, Liverpool fans are going to take a deep breath. He's just not as good as Alisson. Not many keepers are. I mean, some people rate Alisson as the best goalkeeper in the world. He's certainly in the conversation. And every time that ball goes into the penalty area, there will be... Adrian just doesn't command the penalty area the way Alisson does. Even set pieces, things like that. if Liverpool click up front, though, I think they win, not comfortably, but it'll be fairly straightforward.
But we now know, courtesy of Richard Keys, Football Insider, that the front two hate each other. Two of the front three despise each other, and these are the end of days for this trio. I mean, Rich Keys never been wrong about a story in his life.
No, absolutely. And I think the worry is that the last few weeks, the Liverpool front three has been a bit sloppy in terms of just not clicking, and they play at such high pace that if there's just the odd stray pass, it all breaks down. But I just think tonight Liverpool are going to have plenty of possession. They're going to have Atletico pinned back, and if they score early, then it changes the whole mindset of Atletico, because now Atletico are not in a winning position. They're now in a position where they're holding on and the pressure is on them. And Atletico, sure, they were solid over in Madrid a few weeks ago, but they're just not the team that they used to be. And I think if Liverpool's front three click, then I think they'll go through. And the only thing, obviously Jordan Henderson's back. You'd imagine when Alden's going to play, I think he's going to have to take Fabinho out. He just looks
a bit sluggish.
So
Henry
short.
Cunningham telling you, he had game. We'll come back to that a little later, because it's definitely an issue. But we've got Martin Lipton on the line. I want to move on to Spurs. Martin, good morning to you. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well.
So I don't think anybody was particularly surprised by the outcome last night, given the way that the first leg went. But Spurs weren't really in this tie over the two legs, and I think that must be the most disappointing thing from a Spurs fans' perspective, given that they were in the final of this competition just last year.
Well, yeah, they were the second best, if not third best, from the first kick in the first leg, in truth, weren't they? They were utterly outclassed over the two matches by a far superior team. And sometimes you just got to accept it. And I think Mourinho did as well, in truth. They're not very good at the moment. They haven't been very good, apart from the Champions League run, for 18 months.
Here's the issue. They're not very good at the moment. Is that because the players aren't good enough, or is that because the manager at the moment doesn't actually know how to get the best out of this squad?
Pochettino identified the fact that squad was wrung dry more than 18 months ago. The World Cup actually was the worst thing that could happen to Tottenham, because both Spurs and Belgium went really deep, which meant they weren't able to get rid of the players who they wanted to get rid of in the summer of 2018. And they haven't, as a collective, acted sufficiently since. And now everything that was foreseen by Pochettino is actually coming to fruit, or withering on the vine, in truth. It's a mess, and it needs a massive and wholesale change this summer.
Do you think Mourinho is going to be given the opportunity to oversee that change? Does he have the appetite for that change, and is he the right man to build a new squad?
Will he be given the opportunity? Yes. Does he have the appetite? That's to be seen. Is he the right man? He's got to prove it. Levy is all in with Mourinho, so there's no question at this juncture, at least, and I don't think it's going to change, of them ditching him. So he's going to have to get it right. Whether he wants to is another matter. To be fair, he hasn't misbehaved. I would have expected by now, given the performances, to have seen the absolute worst of Mourinho. And in truth, we haven't. We've seen a very different Mourinho to the one I anticipated. No, because he's on his best behaviour and recognises that if he doesn't sort it at Spurs, there won't be another job at a big club. And maybe that's part of it. But even his digging out of Ndombele would have struck a chord with most of the Spurs fans, because he just hasn't played. And he hasn't been fit all season. He's paid 60 million for a player who's played 90 minutes 3 times.
That is interesting, right? Because that was a bit of a test case where we see him giving out about one of his players, and we've seen that increasingly as his career has gone on. From, if you think back to the Porto days, and you think to the bit after that, where Chelsea, there was never really any of his players that he would have dug out in public. He was all about lifting them up.
He did. He dug out Joe Cole and he scored a winner in one game against Liverpool. He slaughtered Kesman. Just people forget it because of his winning games.
I guess because, what I really remember is Frank Lampard saying that he never felt more confidence than when Jose Mourinho told him he was great. Even Damien Duff, who he turned into a left-back from a left winger, he did that in such a manner that Duff felt like he was an important part of a title-winning squad. I mean, look, Kesman, I had forgotten about that. The Joe Cole, I had also forgotten about that. So it doesn't feel like he's the same positive force that's using his personality to make the entire squad believe that they're world beaters. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, look, when he set up at Chelsea, he had better players and in a better condition, and players who were hungry to prove something. Spurs, you've got, if you look at that team, I think 6 or 7 of them are gone. They're either not good enough or no longer good enough. And he recognises that now. And he made all the right sounds when he came in because he had to. That will have changed privately, I'm sure, that he recognises now that the centre-halves have got no pace between them. You can't win without pace at centre-half. The full-backs aren't good enough on the ball. You've got to play with width and pace out wide. The central midfield doesn't exist. That's got to be changed. You can just about get away with Winks if you've got a powerful man alongside him, but you can't when you've got nothing alongside him. So I don't think Lucas Moura is good enough, and I haven't from the moment they signed him, in truth. So there's plenty there who just aren't up to it. Now, and then you take away the 4 players who are absolute certain starters in Kane, Son, Bergwijn, who he's bought, and Sissoko, just because of his power, and you're left with an awful mess.
Absolutely on the mess, right? But also, I suspect if you're Mourinho and you think next season I'm going to have those 4 players, and let's assume that they're fit, which is obviously a big enough assumption to make, that there's the bones of a decent team there. So how many players is he actually short before he could have a team that he says is his team and that he can confidently look at? Are we looking at another 2 transfer windows at least?
I think 6 players, so that needs to be either in one window or 2. I think you need a goalkeeper, or certainly a number 2 who can step in, because they haven't got that at the moment. Luis is looking very vulnerable as he proved certainly the first goal last night. I think the second is a bit harsh to blame him, but the first goal he was definitely should have saved. Aurier's never been good enough. The left back's not been good enough. As I said, no pace at centre half, a proper holding midfielder. That's 6 players, 5 players straight away. You know, they need to be changed. If you get the foundations right, they've got the roof. Just they haven't got any foundations at the moment. You know, Kane and Son and Lo Celso and Bergwijn and Dele Alli make very good foundations, but there's nothing to stick them on.
And in that instance...
I mean, good roof, rather. There's nothing to stick on. There's nothing underneath to hold the whole thing in place.
Yeah, in that instance, Lucas Moura is a totally fine player to have as a squad, rotating in and out and playing a few minutes here and there. Like, you know, there's depth up front. It's just that it's been completely stretched at this point. Like, this is the type of thing that mostly Mourinho have been good at, buying defenders and building a defensive structure. Certainly the Man United experiment didn't particularly end with a very good defence. But he didn't have attacking players that Spurs have at that point. So I guess that's the bit. If there's any hope for Spurs fans who are looking at what looks like the end of an era, then it has to be that we have one of the best defensive minds in world football history in charge of a team, and his task now is to build a defence.
Yeah, look, I think it's normally easier to buy people who can stop teams than it is to buy people who can unlock teams. And Spurs have got the unlockers; they just haven't got the stoppers. So there are centre-halves out there, I'm sure, with the physicality and pace that he requires. There are full-backs who can do what he wants. I think it's fixable as long as there's a willingness to spend the money. The problem you've got is you're going to get next to nothing for the players you're shipping out. Whereas 2 years ago, when Pochettino identified the problem, you'd have probably got 50 or 60 million for Alderweireld, you'd have got 60 million for Rose, you'd have probably got 30 million for Dembele, and you might have got 50 million for Dyer. Now you might get, Rose is never coming back. Alderweireld you might get 10 million for if you're lucky. Dembele's gone. And Dyer is obviously having a really tough time. So suddenly what was £200 million worth of players potentially to reinvest that money is about 30 million. It's a big difference.
In those circumstances, is there any possibility that he cashes in one of his other assets, that maybe a Dele Alli is somebody he looks at and goes, look, I'm going to get somebody else in and I think I can probably still get a fair bit of cash for you? Does he have to become a bit of a wheeler dealer given the ownership?
Well, that might be the decision. The Spurs have got the money. I mean, what I would say is the virus may have an impact on them, given that Spurs take more than anyone except Arsenal as a percentage of their income through the gate because of the amount that goes into each home game. They might have to. That's Daniel Levy's call rather than Mourinho's, but they'll have that conversation. Dele's been there for 5 years now. He's done pretty well, hasn't he? He's scored 50 goals. He's 23. He's a saleable asset. I suspect you could get 50 to 60 million for him. If that has to be, and I'm not advocating it, by the way, but if that has to be the sacrifice to get the players you need in, then maybe you have to consider it.
Yeah. Martin, you mentioned the impact of the coronavirus there. What do you think is actually going to be the most likely, now that we've had a match postponed, tonight's game between Arsenal and City, what do the football authorities want to happen? And what will the government end up doing here, in your estimation?
I'm not a scientist. I'm not privy to government knowledge. I don't know what's been decided. I think that all games will be off after this weekend for 2 or 3 weeks. One of the reasons is that also will cover the international break, so it isn't. It won't be. If you take out 4 weeks, there's only actually 2 weeks of games because of the international break. I think that they want Cheltenham out of the way before they do it. If they were to announce now that we're going to have all games played behind closed doors after Monday, people would ask them, why not now? So you have to wait until the day before. It's even possible this weekend's games might not be played now, because clearly this is a growing crisis. We are the last people to have been impacted in England and the UK and Ireland, really, compared to the rest of Europe, where it's becoming increasingly difficult to see anything going on in the short term. But I think we're inevitably coming to matches being played behind closed doors in the Premier League. If it were me, I would just postpone the games in the lower divisions, because those clubs are absolutely, utterly reliant on gate income to survive. Premier League clubs less so. And the Premier League needs to finish come what may. If you have to play League One and League Two into June, you could do it, because it's not going to impact on Euros. You haven't got any players away at the tournaments. Yes, they have a short summer, but at least the clubs exist. Premier League clubs don't need it. They just need to finish.
Yeah, okay, so behind closed doors as opposed to postponed at Premier League.
Yeah,
but, yeah, and
that's the plan. They got to finish the season. If they don't finish the season, then the next season's ruined as well. Now, I know that public health is far more important than football, but if you assume that there's no danger in playing games behind closed doors, then it's absolutely incumbent on, from the Premier League perspective, is the season is finished, so they can determine who goes up, who's in it next season, who goes into Europe next season, what competitions they go in, where the prize money is spent, etc. They need to finish the season to do that.
Martin, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Cheers.
Martin Lipton there giving us some thoughts on Spurs and what's next with regards to the Premier League and coronavirus. 8:31 here this morning on OTB AM. Jerry Gilroy here with you until 9:30. If you want to get in touch with us, you can drop us a WhatsApp. 0879 180 180 is the number, and we'll be sending out our tips by WhatsApp a little bit later on if you want them for Cheltenham. We're talking Liverpool next with Phil Thompson, but first, obviously, Ireland can go top of Group I of their Euro 2021 qualifying campaign if they beat Montenegro this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Here's Ruisha Littlejohn and Denise O'Sullivan on what the Irish game plan is going to be.
Greece have beaten Montenegro 4-0 on their own patch.
Right.
I think you could do something the same.
We just want to win. We just want to get the 3 points, get the job done. Doesn't matter what the score is, doesn't matter how we do it. We just need to get the 3 points.
I know you have to show Montenegro respect when you go over there and play them next week, but Greece did go to their own patch and beat them 4-0. Is that kind of where the benchmark is at?
I mean, we're going to go there confident for sure, but I think we're not going to take them lightly at all. This is another game where we need to stay focused. We need to stick to the game plan, keep our game plan, keep going. But I think we'll be fine. But I think that is the goal, to get 3 points. Of course, we need to get 3 points over there, and I think we're well able of.
Yeah, so obviously we'll keep you up to date with how that game is going from 3 o'clock this afternoon. Big game for Ireland. Big opportunity for them to go top of the group and really cement their place as one of the favourites to go through from that group after the 1-0 win against Greece at Tala. Vera Pauw was on speaking with Joe, and actually really interesting to hear just talk exactly about what the plan was, what the player's job was, and be very calm and relaxed about revealing her plans as a manager. A welcome breath of fresh air when it comes to speaking to international managers about tactical analysis and what they're actually trying to achieve. So that game kicks off at 3 o'clock today. We'll cover it on all our social channels, @OffTheBall on Twitter, youtube.com/OffTheBall. Best place is obviously the website as well. Let's go back to what might happen if Europe's major football leagues can't be completed. Obviously, football in Italy has been basically cancelled until April, so a couple of weeks off, not even playing those games behind closed doors. Games gone ahead behind closed doors in La Liga, in Liga, and also in the Bundesliga. At the moment, it's as you were in the Premier League, with the exception of the game tonight between Arsenal and Manchester City. That's a very specific case, given that the Olympiacos owner was on the field at the Emirates a couple of weeks ago after Olympiacos beat them. But this was obviously something that was on the football show last night. They were talking about with Paddy Agnew, who is on lockdown in his home in Italy. But obviously the Skype connection is working, so we took the opportunity to speak to him. Here he is having a chat with Joe. Have a look.
It's a fluid situation, but there's every possibility if things didn't calm down by the time April 3rd comes around, then the suspension would be extended, and then you just reach a certain point where the Serie A season is chalked off, incomplete.
Well, that was one of the things we were discussing today. What do we do if that happens? I mean, there seem to be a number of possibilities. One, you could decide, if it isn't too bad, they could add on, as it stands, the season is due to finish on May the 17th. They're saying we can add on a couple of days, we'll say May the 20th and May the 31st, and that'll recover the two match days that we're losing now. But if you lose more match days, then you're in terrific trouble. And they said that if that happens, they might consider a number of options. One would be to basically award the title on the basis, not get the championship finished, but award the title on the basis of the standings as they then are. Say you're 3 days from the finish and Juventus right in front, then they win the title. Or you could decide not to award it at all and just tell UEFA who are the first 4 teams and qualify them for the European competitions. Or you could play a sort of play out and play off, as they call it, for the championship title and for relegation between the top 4 and the bottom 4.
Yeah, so all of these scenarios are obviously being planned for at the moment in all sports around the world. One thing we do know for sure is that the game tonight at Anfield goes ahead. I'm delighted to say we've got Phil Thompson with us to talk to us about this. Phil, obviously football is slightly overshadowed by what's going on around Europe with the coronavirus. What's your gut instinct about what might happen in English football over the coming weeks?
Well, I feel extremely sorry that the things that are happening in Italy are quite excessive. And it's hard to judge ourselves sort of where they are at the moment. Hopefully we don't get as bad as what it is. And it must be really worrying out there. I don't think we are in that position at the moment. But we just have to go with the authorities and what they have to do. And I know there's managers saying that the game shouldn't take place without fans because it's imperative. That's what the game is about. I can go with a lot of ways with it, but you have to feel at the moment. You can see. I don't know. We've had 6 deaths. My goodness, Italy has been far in excess of that, and it's quite frightening. So it would be worrying. I'm listening there to the scenarios, what it could end up with.
Okay, Phil's just the line is gone on us there. So right, we'll come back. We'll come back to Phil in just a minute. In the meantime, obviously, we've been talking about what might actually happen with the Liverpool front 3 over the off season. There's this kind of sense that maybe this is the end for this Liverpool front 3. That there's been certainly very strong links with Liverpool and other strikers around Europe. Jadon Sancho's been mentioned, Timo Werner's been mentioned, but who would they be replacing? Kenny Cunningham has a theory. Have a look.
Great managers for me are always a step ahead of the game, and Klopp is closer to those players than we are in terms of the dressing room environment, dealing with those players on 1v1 basis. And if he gets a bit of a sense of, just gets an inkling that I just need to change something here, not that there's been a massive drop off in performance of any one of those players, but I do notice with Salah, last number of games I've watched him play, even at Anfield, you just get a bit of a sense of something coming from the crowd when he's on he makes that, misplaces a pass. He's a little bit sloppy, doesn't pick the right option, a little bit selfish. But I think sometimes as a manager, you've got to make a statement. You've got to throw a grenade into the dressing room, or you've got to preempt it, even before those players start getting a little bit kind of, cavalier in their attitude, maybe their focus. The best managers get a sense, just as sneaking, I've got it, and then they make a decision, a bold decision. And for me, there's an egg for the summer. It wouldn't surprise me if we're like, whoa, Sancho's in, Salah's out.
All right, we've got Phil Thompson re-established there. Phil, we'll park the virus talk for a while. We may as well, because everybody's talking about it all the time. Let's talk a bit about football. Kenny Cunningham there talking about perhaps Klopp might be looking at changing things up in the summer. Not saying that it's the right thing to do, but just that this is the type of thing that a bit of left field thinking that you can see from a manager like Jurgen Klopp, and that if that was to happen, that of the front three, in a weird way, the most replaceable one is actually Salah as opposed to Sané in particular or Bobby Firmino. What's your take on what might happen with this front three in the summer?
I would like to think you have to be ready. Being on the sort of management side, as I was with Gerard Houllier, you have to be ready for every eventuality. You have to even start to preempt things. You're very, very happy with what you've got. The age of if it is the three guys, but it's not even just the three guys, you have to be ready for every scenario. So you have to be looking out there for players. Yeah, you could say certain players haven't been at their best this year, but we've been good enough. And I think it's just times that we have been better than most teams. And maybe it's complacency more than anything. But if it was three strikers, you see, the strikers are the ones which are always, and I would like to think you should always want to be at Liverpool, and Liverpool is the greatest team in the world. It happens, and we've seen it with Suarez, we've seen it with Coutinho. These things, they can turn players' heads, and it's normally the playmakers, the goal scorers, and I think that comes down to those three lads. And I would think Klopp would. He's not daft. He's very, very clever. He'll be looking at, and he'll be sniffing out sort of replacements for any of them. And I noticed Timo Werner, who has been on the lips of a lot of people. Yes, he'd be one, but there would be others. Sancho brings the same thing. He would bring pace out wide if that happened. But there is different permutations, even in midfield where we're blessed with a lot of players. But I still think he'd be looking for maybe that one that we had with Coutinho, that sort of player.
Yeah.
And even defensively, you have to be ready.
Yeah, and look, that's just preparedness. In terms of being ready, they're obviously ready tonight for the play acting and trick acting that they're going to get from Atletico.
Right.
You can say you're ready for it, Phil, but then when somebody's doing whatever it is that they're doing to get under your skin and they're so practiced at it, it's very hard not to react.
No, people have said to me they didn't want that. You know, that referee was hopeless and absolutely scandalous in Madrid. I wish he was there tonight because he would be swayed, and he was swayed by the crowd. And this is what Liverpool. I don't often say that you should try to sort of take gamesmanship to the limit. This is one of those nights, and those players in that dressing room, if that happens, as we did in the second leg against Barcelona, not just scoring the goals, but being ready to take it to them. And these heard it, what happened in Madrid. Yes, they're the best at it, and they feign injury and they do everything. We have to be ready to do similar things. The crowd have to be ready to react. And I think that is the big thing. I think everybody is up for this game tonight, as much as it was the Barcelona game, for different reasons. And that is that's what makes football great. You don't know what is going to happen. You have to be ready for it. You have to be ready to react. It will be tough. It will be hard. But I think this team is quite easily. We haven't been up for a game like this for a long time, not since the Leicester game probably away. And we will perform.
All right. Phil, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks very much.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Bye.
Phil Thompson there giving us his thoughts about the game tonight. Now the man of the hour, Tom Malone. A victory lap.
Yeah, it was a pretty good day yesterday, guys.
How's the voice, Tom?
My voice is I'm thoroughly blaming this on Rachel Blackmore and
your mic is on mute, I think.
My mic is on mute.
His voice actually sounds even worse when we turn this mic on.
Yeah, it's
not even on. Jesus, that's how much of a victory lap this is. My voice is going to carry anyway.
Yeah, my voice is in bad shape because to be perfectly honest, I screamed honeysuckle home, particularly a brilliant manoeuvre by Rachel Blackmore to get up the inside of Stormy Ireland in the closing stages that I don't think William Mullins was too happy about, but it was a brilliant piece of jockeyship. I don't think it was the winning and losing of the race, but it was a significant move, and that was my magical piece of the day, to be perfectly honest.
It was a magical day all round. You had 3 winners.
Yeah, a couple of winners, all right. Chishkin's obviously nice. Champion Hurdle didn't go to plan. And the conditional actually was really good too. Enjoyed that, although he pecked at the back of the last and gave us the right fright.
Yes. Yes, I was like cursing him here.
But yeah, no, I suppose we called him out on Monday morning, so hopefully a few people kind of...
And he was a big enough price that stage. It was a bit of money from the end.
Yeah, it was about 10 or 12 to 1 available on Monday, but he returned at 8s. I think he drifted actually slightly over the course of the day, but it was a very good day. But there are plenty of losing opportunities to come between now and Friday evening.
Well, don't worry, we'll get into those a little bit later on the Paddy Power Cheltenham show coming your way after 9 o'clock this morning. All sorts of breaking news about matches being cancelled.
Yeah, so sport obviously continues to be hit by the coronavirus. So tonight's Premier League game between Manchester City and Arsenal postponed. That's after staff of the North London club came into contact with the owner of Greek side of Olympiacos, Evangelos Marinakis, who has tested positive for COVID-19. Brighton have since announced that Arsenal's visit on Saturday is still going ahead currently. That follows consultation with the Premier League and medical advisors. Meanwhile, Wolves say their Premier League tie at Olympiacos tomorrow, even behind closed doors, is an unnecessary risk. The Premier League side have had a request to postpone the match in Athens rejected by UEFA. A manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, believes the sport is setting a poor example.
There's a danger that is worldwide, and we should go there. Maybe there's another solution for it. And us as football, that we pass sending the right message to say, okay, we are okay to compete and have contact, and fans cannot. It's a big confusion.
Yeah, elsewhere actually on the pitch tonight, or last night rather, Tottenham exited the Champions League at the hands of RB Leipzig last night. The Bundesliga side were 3-0 winners in the night and 4-0 winners on aggregate to progress to the quarterfinals for the first time in their short history. The Portuguese boss said that an injury crisis at Spurs meant that they lacked too many of their top players to compete.
We have our problems, and our problems, as you say, they don't end in injuries, but no team in the world would cope with injuries for such a long time. You can cope for 1 or 2 matches, you cannot cope for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, the Jose Mourinho effect. He's perfected it now, hasn't it? It just comes into effect quicker and quicker and quicker. It's like
I do have some sympathy with the injuries. Yeah, his best players all gone.
He's just not who you want in a crisis, is he? He just like, remember at Chelsea, and he used to just gather them all around. He just got that bunker mentality going, and now it's just the opposite.
He definitely, look, absolutely. And I was making that point to Martin Lipton a little bit earlier on, but he did have Drogba and Lampard and Terry and Arjen Robben and Duff. Yeah. He'd kill for that spine of his team now. Yeah, leaders. Joining Leipzig in the quarterfinal will be Atalanta. Josip Ilicic scored all 4 goals in a 4-3 victory away to Valencia. The Serie A side went through 8-4 on aggregate in the end there. Well, Diego Simeone says there'll be few surprises from his Atletico side tonight. Valencia flying over, flying back, no problems. Yep. So if they can do that, the Slovakian players can obviously do
it. It would seem so, yeah. I mean, they just... it's intriguing to see how that all kind of works out. Just that spread of effect, like as if you to draw sort of Venn diagrams and then plot it out. It's not really great. It's not a great look, is it? But speaking of what Phil Thompson mentioned would be important for Liverpool to keep a lid on tonight, Diego Simeone says there will be few surprises from his Atletico Madrid side at Anfield tonight. So I suppose we can take from that they're just going to cheat. They're going to kill it. They're going to attempt to do everything to kill the game. They take a 1-0 first leg lead into the second leg of the Champions League last 16 tie with Liverpool. Captain Jordan Henderson could return for the Reds from his hamstring injury for the reigning champions, who failed to register a shot on target in the first leg defeat in Spain. But manager Jurgen Klopp says that doesn't tell the whole story.
No shots on target sounds like we had no chances. That's not the fact. We had situations. We had good situations. But we played against a team who is probably world's best in deep defending.
Tonight's other game will be played behind closed doors in the Parc des Princes, where Borussia Dortmund resumed 2-1 on host Paris Saint-Germain. Both those games get underway at 8. Well, the Republic of Ireland can claim top spot in Group I of their Euro 2021 qualifiers this afternoon. Vera Pauw's side are away to Montenegro. Stephanie Roach and Emily Whelan have linked up with the squad ahead of the game in Budva, kicking off at 3 o'clock. And of course, racing today from Cheltenham, the feature, the Queen Mother Champion Chase at 3:30, and we'll have more of that on the Cheltenham show with Paddy Power from 9.
Good stuff, Tom. Thanks very much for that. Tom's tips coming your way as well after 9. Now, delighted to have got Kieran Donaghy with us this morning. Kieran, how are you getting on?
Good, Ger. How are you?
Yeah, so obviously the Arsenal-Chelsea game gone, Arsenal-City game gone tonight. not because of any directive from government, but because of a specific incident involving the Olympiacos owner. From a GAA perspective, from an Irish sports perspective, we kind of have not moved to the point where games are being played behind closed doors. And I'm wondering, we should maybe start planning for these scenarios. I'm sure the scenarios are being planned for at GAA. The FAI are meeting today with the clubs to kind of talk about what potential outcomes might be. But Kieran Shannon's floating the possibility there might not even be a 2020 football championship.
Yeah, well, look, I was watching Clareburn 2 nights ago, and they were talking about that we could beat Italy in a month's time if we don't probably act fast. And look, we've a lot of gatherings with fans, especially in the GAA. There's grounds all around the country that crowds go to watch games, and the biggest fear for me is our hospital system and kind of take the influx of people going in that may have it, especially the elderly people that we have to mind and look after. I think, as horrible as it would be to play games in front of empty stadiums, I certainly think it's something that we have to be kind of on the front foot for, and I don't think we can be reactionary with it. I think it'll be too dangerous if we're reactionary with it. I'm not a health expert. I just know even the last day or two I'm trying to stop shaking hands because I'm a good man to shake hands and I meet people. So it is very hard for me to do it. But it just, we have to try and just and protect ourselves as best we can. And if we can all do that much, but you're going to have an influx of people coming back from Cheltenham after 4 or 5 days in close quarters with people coming back into the country. And you're hoping it doesn't pick up a few cases over there that obviously multiplies by the time you get back. So the GAA, I'm sure, are certainly monitoring the situation very close, and I think it deserves that respect because we have a lot of old people that go to games. It's their one day out of the house where they go to the game at the weekend, wherever it is, following their county. And we just can't afford to, for old people to be getting sick and to be going into hospital that already don't have enough beds. So it's something that we do have to be very careful of.
Yeah, there's stuff in the papers today. John O'Mahony is saying that he thinks that this weekend's games are going to be okay, but the games after that might be behind closed doors. And you're kind of wondering about what the benefit is of not just making the decision now. Now, mostly the issue with a lot of this seems to be that the government needs to make the decision and hand down the decision so that the sports bodies are covered with their insurers in case anything happens. If that is the issue, then the sports bodies need to tell the government, look, lads, you just need to tell us what to do here, as in officially say, we're going to play these behind closed doors, we're going to keep the matches on because we think that's probably safe enough, and actually it'll give people stuff to do so you can sit at home and watch the game on TV. I don't know, it seems like being out ahead of this as opposed to chasing your tail afterwards is the best course of action.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I think being out in front of it is actually crucial. As I said, especially for us and our health system, we've unbelievable doctors and nurses that work unbelievably hard, but our system is flawed with bed situation and space in hospitals and ER rooms, and it's just, we have to be out in front of it. We have to take immediate action. I was looking at something last night in Rwanda where there is not a single case and people can't get on the bus. They have all these mobile hand washers outside in the street, and you can't get on the bus unless you wash your hands thoroughly under the watchful eye of some guy who's a hand washing expert who stands on the edge of the bus. But they don't have any cases. No, we had 1, and then we'd 4, and then we'd 14, and now we're up to 40 or 50. We have to, I would say, act just pretty rapidly and be on the offensive with this, and put everything behind closed doors for the next month or two, hopefully, so we can go have a championship. Because if we bury our head in the sand now, I think I think Kieran Shannon mightn't be far off that this thing could come to the summer where there is massive crowds. Your 40,000s in Killarney, your 40,000s above in Castlebar, your big crowds in Crow Park, Thurles, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, all these great stadiums. And I prefer to be playing a league game behind closed doors than playing a Munster final or an All-Ireland quarter final or something like that, because it is eerie. It does take away from it massively, and something that we don't want to see. So I would be very much on the point of view to act now for all them reasons, but health being number one.
Yeah, let's talk about and look again. None of us are any experts. We don't have any information from the government. We don't have any information from the GAA about what their scenario planning is. But as Kieran Shannon points out, Club Month is April anyway. Those matches could all be played behind closed doors if they wanted them to go ahead. Is the right thing to do for games to go ahead? What's that like from a player's perspective? Keep playing games, get the games, keep them on track, or just cancel everything? Because I'm definitely in two minds about if you cancel everything, then there's nothing to do except sit and consume the news. And if everybody's just sitting all day consuming the news, watching the spread of the virus around the world, that's not great for the country's morale. If at least there are matches that are on telly, there is something for us to think about and talk about and get distracted by. And it is a distraction, and it's supposed to be a distraction because it is sport. We've frozen. There you go. Finally ask a good question, and it's into the ether. It's 8:54 this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, you can get us. You can WhatsApp us 0879 180 180. Kieran, I was
sorry, sir.
Yeah, no worries. It's just making.
You were in the middle of a great question.
There you go. My last ever good question.
You're a top class journalist. Come on, let's
there you
have
go.
you.
I was asking. Look, it's good to have a distraction in times of national crisis. I'm going to repeat this line. It was a brilliant line from Philippe Auclair yesterday. Of all the stuff that doesn't matter, this is the most important. And he's talking about Jorge Valdano, talking about football. But like, we love GAA. We love talking about it. If everything goes on shutdown and there's no games, that's not the best scenario either for our own mental health as a nation.
Yeah, 100%. My wife Hilary was saying that the last day that, she said no matter what happens, let's hope all the sport keeps going ahead, even if it is behind closed doors, because it just gives us something to watch for an hour and a half on a Sunday. And maybe they could start staggering the games and trying to show more of them, or maybe the GAA could take the approach of streaming more games, club games, county games, so people can see every game, not just the one that's on RTE or Tina G or Sky Sports or whatever, that they take go on the front foot, that right, we're saying lads, games are going to go ahead as long as we try and control and maintain the spread of this virus. And hopefully if we get on control of it earlier and the numbers start coming down, people start seeing light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, I'd be strongly on your side there, Ger. Just stopping games is not the way to go. And the GAA may be encouraging clubs, like we stream all our own basketball games with the Tralee Warriors. It's not hard to do. And I think people being allowed to stream their games, county boards, clubs, whatever goes, that people can sit at home and actually watch their county. And you're right, it is for state of mind. Like we're not too far away from schools being shut, possibly. People may be forced to work from home where possible, and you do need some outlet. You do need something to sit around and watch as a family and talk about and get on WhatsApp and talk about, get on Twitter and talk about, because otherwise, as you rightly say, all we're going to be looking at is coronavirus.
How would players feel if, say, the summer, say it rolls on? Because we're hearing this could be 3 months to 6 months, right? Is the right thing to do to postpone the championship, or is the right thing to do to play the championship? If let's assume the health authorities say, yeah, you can have matches, no problems, you just can't have crowds at the matches. What is the right thing to do? In your view, as a player who would have played in these things, do you want it put back until winter time and then the season starts and we kind of rush it through and you try and it might go over winter, we could have an All-Ireland final in January or February next year? Or is the best thing to do to play it in summer when the weather's good, on the same schedule, but just with no fans?
I prefer to put it back. I'd maybe get the football that we all really don't mind too much missing, which is the provincial championships. I wouldn't mind getting them out of the way behind closed doors, to be quite honest with you. They haven't been good the last number of years. There's very rarely good games. The odd final throws up a good game. And maybe putting a stop to it then and letting guys go back to their clubs maybe and waiting for the virus to clear. I don't think anybody wants to be playing in Super 8s or All-Ireland semi-finals or All-Ireland quarter-finals in the hurling with nobody in the crowd. Players don't train to play to be on TV. They don't play to train to be out there in an empty stadium. The buzz and the extra percentage you get when you get out onto the field and you hear that roar from the crowd is a lot of the reason people play. And not the reason they play, but the reason that we do it all for is them big games and the big atmospheres. So it would be shocking if there was big games going on in the summer and there was nobody in the stadium. So I would say, play as much as you can, but when we get down to the real nitty gritty, where people are mad to go to games, and you'd see full houses in every stadium for the Super 8s on, and indeed the All Ireland hurling quarterfinals. Hurling like the provincial championships in hurling are good. They are working. So there's going to be a counter argument there, of course. So look, it's very hard to actually say, Ger, to be quite honest. It's very hard to know what to do. But playing huge games, a Munster hurling final with nobody there is going to be very anticlimactic for the players and indeed people watching at home. Like, people watching at home feed off the energy of the crowd as well, believe it or believe it not, because you hear the roar from the crowd when the ball goes over the bar or into the back of the net, and you react to that roar as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, a refereeing decision, exactly.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see referees not responding to crowds for a change though as well. That would be like, oh, this is an interesting experiment here. Hang on a second, he just took the head off and you didn't even notice. Look, I think there's loads of scenarios. You could probably run a lot of stuff and then put a pause when you reach a certain point of the championship, or you run everything and hope that by August everything comes back and maybe the season is delayed a month or 2 months.
we might be forced into what we talked about last year in the Shot Clock podcast, which is an actual championship where they figure out a way to run it off properly and are forced to run it off quickly, and then we might sit around the table at the end of that and say, well, that actually worked fine.
Yeah.
Fellas are able for it.
One last question. Donny Buckley's gone from the Kerry setup. How big a blow is this in your estimation to Kerry's defensive structure in particular, and just generally to the Brains Trust?
I think Donny's going to be a loss, obviously, because he is by his own design, he's a professional GA coach. That's what he is. He goes off to Florida for the winter and he goes into high schools and college basketball programs, college American football programs. He heads down to Australia for 2 weeks and gets in with the Swans behind the scenes and watch what they do, new drills, new tackling. He goes watch rugby player. He's all consumed in the game, and a guy that has nothing else going on in his life but to try and help Kerry will of course be a loss. He's a players guy. I know the players liked him when I was in there, and I'm sure this current crop like him. He's a very enthusiastic guy with only Kerry in mind. He's very good around the setup. He never does any interviews. He never talks about anything behind the scenes. He keeps to himself. But look, it's a decision that Peter at the start, this disappointment was probably forced on his management group, and whereas I look at you look at even just like you look at Jim Gavin and the amount of guys he's pulled in over the years, basketball coaches to try and help his defensive setup, his zonal defending, he pulled out of guys from soccer backgrounds and everything, and here we are with a guy who has a wealth of knowledge and that kind of thing, and we don't have him, and we're not even bringing anybody else in. We're just keeping it as the crew. And don't get me wrong, there's loads of experience. Peter has been very successful in his managerial career, so you can't question him until that time comes. But he has Maurice Fitzgerald, he has Tommy Griffin, who's an excellent defender, who's done well with his defending, with his defence coaching of all Peter's underage teams. So look, they have experience there, but it is disappointing that you lose a guy with that kind of vast levels of experience and expertise. All right, Kieran, we leave it there for now. Good stuff. Thanks a million. All right, Ger. Okay, bye. Kieran Donaghy giving us his thoughts there. Should have got some Cheltenham tips off him before we let him go. We'll get some later on in the week. It is to Cheltenham returning next. This is the end of OTB AM, but the Paddy Power Cheltenham show is right up after these. Stay tuned.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.